Alright, we are live and updating Visual Studio real quick. We're going to start with this specification, I think. And we'll move to GuardClauses after we play with that for a bit. Put that in there. Throw these in the chat. Surly Dev, you're right on time. Can you hear me alright? Let's see, I noticed that the OBS wasn't quite set up the way I wanted it either. So I need to play with that for a minute. Let's see. We're going to configure this green screen that I've got behind me now. I'm in my new office. Let's see if we can chroma key that thing. Not sure the lighting's perfect, but we'll see what we can do. So in here, you can add a filter with an effect, chroma key, and it should look kind of like that. And we'll say close. Alright, you can still see a lot of that there, right? So let's edit that. No. Filter, chroma key. Alright. So I want to see this turn black, basically. And similarity is the first thing to try. You can see that's mostly fading to black and disappearing. Let's see, I have some other lights I can try and throw on there, but that's probably pretty good. I think we're gonna do it all just with similarity boost. I think that's good enough. Alright, so we'll close that down. And with that, now I can make this bigger. It's already a little bit stretched though. So that was my challenge last time, was how do I get this bigger and still get the chat on there. So the chat needed to move there, so otherwise it was cutting off. So that needed to tuck in. Alright, so the Streamlabs chat we can lock. And left screen, I'd like to be able to tweak to the edge of the chat. But I could also move it down, but that'll just stretch it more. No advert. Oh, okay. I wonder why. Alright, let me see what this looks like in my browser. It's not terrible. Alright, I really don't need the chat to be the full length like it is. Let's unlock the chat. And maybe, can I shrink it this way? Why is it not? How am I? I'm good. Except I don't know why the chat is locked in its aspect ratio. That makes no sense. Is there some thing telling it to do that? No. Let's see. You can't control Z it. Let's just bring it back to there. Alright. Chat. 330. Let's make it 600 is probably fine. There we go. And this thing is the event list. This thing doesn't change all that often. It certainly doesn't need to be 600 wide. What was the other one? 330? Where'd my chat go? Chat just disappeared. Oh, there it goes. I guess you have to keep typing. Hey, Niyoashi. Alright, so let's see. This is width 330, height 600. So if I make this thing like 330, 400, maybe? Is that going to be readable? 400 is probably still too long. Alright, so there's that. That is clearly more than 330. You're not doing what I said. Well, maybe it is 330. Well, why is the other one? It's me width 200. How about that? Yeah, it's better. But let's get this into the space. Alright, so I just really want to get that font down, is what I want. Height 100, let's say. It's not looking good at all. Have you got a new green screen? Yeah, I do. In my office, I painted the wall green. So, alright. I think I want this to be down below. And this to be... Let's get this out of the way. Let's get this up here. And if it's just big enough to show like 3 things, that's fine. Alright. And then the chat can just snap in right below it. And then this camera, see, that can slide over here. And this can slide... Where's my camera? Unlock the camera. This can slide way over here. And my hope is that I can bring this down. Can I bring it over at all? I don't want to stretch it too much. But now I'm not like in the way too much. Alright. So I don't know how to make this thing readable is the thing. Streamlabs event list. Custom, can I tell it the font? Streamlabs. Let's go see if we can do something with that. We'll get started in coding in just a second. I just want to get this layout stuff fixed up. Plus you guys can tell me how you like it. Alright, so this is the event list. Right, it's a widget, all widgets, event list. There's the thing, there's what it looks like. Cool, it bounces in and all that. Max events 4, that's fine. How do I change the size? Theme. Yeah. Problem is it's huge. Custom CSS, is that what I need to mess with it? Because seeing like the first 2 or 3 letters of someone's name is not that helpful. So let's try... Nope. Alright, chatters. Anybody know how to do this? I missed the streaming on worker service template. Did health checking feature get into the worker service? No, we didn't do any health check. Neoshi. Alexei Markovin, hello. Please share your treadmill stand-up desk details. Ah, see, look. The gear link worked to my bot, but I don't think that has anything about my treadmill on it, so let me find that. That's all here. You can't see this, but you will in a second. Alright, so there's the chat. Is it on there? Here's the page where I talk about it. This is like a really old picture in my basement, but I've still got the same setup. So, yeah. That's it. So hopefully that's helpful. Alright, that's there, that's there. I'd really like this event list to be useful, honestly. But since it's not, I'm just going to hide it. We're going to tuck this thing up here and call that done. Alright, hopefully the code isn't too stretched out or anything. Let's take a look at where we are. I'm going to bring up PowerShell. Does anybody know, is there a way to add a PowerShell window straight from in here? Like, I know I can go to Nuget Package Management Console, but I don't really like this embedded PowerShell console. I really want to have my own separate PowerShell, but I want an easier way to create it than what I normally do, which is this. Open File Explorer, click up here, and type PowerShell. Right, and that works fine, but I'd rather just be able to do it directly, and there's probably some add-in or something, but I wish they would just give it to us. Nope. Thank you. Alright, cool. More peoples. Welcome, welcome. We are today going to be looking at some open source stuff. We're going to start with specification. Specification is a nice pattern for encapsulating your query logic, so you don't end up with link queries and other junk scattered all through your controllers and services and everywhere else. They're all in one place, and they're in specifications. So I have a Nuget package that does this, and I've got a couple things I want to fix with it today, and then I got another Nuget package called GuardClauses that we'll talk about as well. And I'm going to try and fix a few bugs and accept some pull requests for that as well. PowerShell Command Explorer. Is that a Visual Studio added? Alright, what did I change here? I haven't touched this in a while. Oh, well, that looks like some very important white space that I changed. Alright. Well, we'll leave that alone for now. Let me go pull up my GitHub here. Let's see. I have 0 issues and 0 pull requests, so not a lot going on here. I don't think I've updated this to 3.0 yet, but it's just a NuGet package library, so I shouldn't really need to. It's got almost 1,000 downloads. That's nice. Yeah, so the thing I want to add, let me just add an issue for it, is to be able to add a custom selector to it. So custom selector feature, and would like to be able to add custom select to the specification. Assign me, and this is a feature. Is that a thing? I don't have feature, do I? It's an enhancement. There we go. Submit. Alright, so we're going to create this feature if we can. PowerShell Command Explorer is a Visual Studio extension, maybe. Let's see if we can find that. Open PowerShell prompt. Is that what I want? We'll try that. No, it's Visual Studio is closed. Okay. Well, let's close Visual Studio real quick while I create a branch. So we're going to do here get -b selector. Switch to branch. Alright. And that should be all I need. Let's finish this. It can't take that long to install a PowerShell plugin, right? I blame Neoashi if it takes forever. Alright. Go, go, go. Alright, that's done. Good. Close. I'm on a faster computer now than I used to be, so the streaming should be fairly quick even when I build. Used to be when I would build in Visual Studio, it would like stutter the stream, but I think we're in good shape now. We'll keep an eye on this in the other window. Alright, so back to Visual Studio. Tools, command line, developer PowerShell, build into VS. Tools, command line. Alright, let me see. AntMDVS. You're right, I got you. Built in. Maybe I can make a shortcut to that somewhere. Tools, command line, developer PowerShell. Alright, but where is it going to put that? That's my question. Because it tends to want to put it in some stupid path. It also tends to be really slow. It's not here. You saw me hit it, right? Alright, here's my PowerShell I already opened. That's the only PowerShell that I've got. Tools, command line, developer PowerShell. Don't install the add-in. I already installed the add-in. Developer PowerShell is not really doing anything. Maybe my add-in killed it? I don't know. I don't think so. Alright, I did install an add-in before you told me not to, and I don't know what it did. It's not this. That's the built-in thing. The built-in thing that AntMDVS recommended, but that doesn't seem to do anything. Let's try the other one, command prompt. That works fine. So that gives me this. Ooh, and it's even in the right path. Alright, so that's cool. I like that. That's like half the battle is getting me in the right folder. So yeah, I don't know why developer PowerShell is just doing nothing. And I also don't know what the add-in did. What I'd like it to do is pop up here and say open folder in PowerShell and have it do that. That works great. So the add-in works, the extension works. The thing off tools is not working for me. I don't know why. I trust that it works for other people, but it's not doing it for me. Alright, let me close these things down. Close all the documents. I'm in a branch. Good. Alright, so let's run our tests real quick, so you can see kind of what they do. So here we are in the root here, and we can say run tests. And what this will do is it's actually going to spin up a SQL Server container and then run the tests against it, because these use Entity Framework linked to entities, and we'll take the link expressions that I'm running in these tests and convert them into SQL statements, and then verify that I get back the data that I expect. And so I have some sample data, which you can see here on the right, which is author, blog, post, standard stuff that is in a lot of the Entity Framework samples. Okay, so now SQL Server is responding and the tests are running. And you can see it's calculating test coverage. And if you're watching that very quickly, you saw a bunch of SQL go by. Let's scroll back up and look at that. So up here is a bunch of debug stuff coming out of Entity Framework. And here's an example of an Entity Framework command that's being executed here to get the ID, the name, and the URL from blogs, ordered by ID, for instance. Or here we're going to get the posts interjoined with the blogs, right? And that's going to be an example of using a .include statement. And so what I want to test now is that I could do a .select on this. And so instead of getting all these things, right, that you see here, the post, the author ID, the blog ID, the content, etc., maybe I only need the author and the name, let's say. And I'd like a way to do that. So these are in my database communication tests, I believe. And so let's get this big enough that we can see everything nicely. And so our first one is just a simple test. Can we run this query at all? And it works. And this one says, can I just get the blog? Can I get the blog using the Ief repository? Can I get the blog using Ief repository and the spec? And it should also include the posts. That's great. Now I'm going to want to create basically a new one of these tests that will add on a select statement into my specification. So let's look at my model for a second. Let's figure out what would be the reasonable thing that I would want to select. So if I have an author here, and they have their ID and their name and their email, maybe the simplest thing I could select would be give me the author and select just their name, let's say. So if I write a test for that, I'll just throw it right here. Eventually I'll split this up into different folders. But here, I can say get author select name only, return string with name. And this is maybe I shouldn't do that since I'm working with the blog repository. Maybe my specification should be against the blog. So maybe we'll do the same thing with that. We'll just say name only off the blog. Same idea. So instead of the author, we'll just say blog. Alright. And I don't think I have anything that does a specification on a get currently. Alright, so instead of doing a get by ID, this will be, let's say get blogs, select return string, that sounds good. So list async new blog names specification, and we'll pass in nothing. We'll just get their names, and that doesn't exist yet, so we'll have to create it. 1, 2, 3. Singular default is probably fine, and the name should be a valid blog name. Okay, result, but instead of .name, it should just be result. Alright, and there shouldn't be any posts because it's just going to be a string. So I'm expecting this to be a string. Currently, it's not. Can I do that in a strongly typed way? Probably not. I probably need to pass in the select statement to it, right? So let's look at what does a .select normally do? What's its type? So let me pull this off of there. This will give me a list, and I would say .select b such that b dot, and that's not working because I don't have link, maybe? Do I have system.link? I have system.link. Alright, so that's not what it does. Wait, list async. You know, it's just not like this. Alright, let's just try var list equal new list of blog. List dot select. Why is this being so difficult? I don't want to introduce the local. Oh, I don't have the list. That's what it is. Give me that. Alright, now, there we go. So a func of blog, comma, t result is what I need. So I need that property on my specification. So let's create this blog name specification. And I'll go right here with my sample specs. Okay. Alright, we're not filtering. So we'll just do that. So say, give me back all of them. But my return, my selector, should be a new thing, which will be a public func of blog, comma, t result, selector. Something like that, maybe? Alright, now it doesn't like tResult, of course, but link manages to do it. Let's get that off of there. Let's select. Now it's inferring that that's a string. Before I specified this, I didn't know what it was, and it was just a tResult. And it did it because it's just an extension method. So can I support an extension method on my specification, maybe? Let's look at how I evaluate the specification. So here's my Ief Specification Evaluator. And there's two parts to it. So first, there's this first specification evaluator that does all the stuff that's not related to Ief, which is basically everything but the includes. And then here, the query gets returned back after we've added the includes. So the question is there something I can do right here to apply the selector in such a way that Ief will do the right thing and create the SQL that I want. So this would be something like query equals query.select, and here I would just say specification.selector, like that. And then it's like, well, let's generate that method. Well, it's not really a method though. Let's make it a property. Too late. Can we use the specification pattern with read-only repositories in the query side of CQRS? Definitely. They would be great there. Should work fine. That's not a very helpful type, is it? Let's come back here. So I want that to be a property, I think. Generate read-only. Sure. Cannot convert from this to that. Are you missing a cast? Well, why didn't you create the thing I needed? When I tell you to create a property that fits this, you should really do that for me. Func of t comma object. Right, I don't know what object is. That should be like a dynamic, or at least an anonymous. Alright, so how do I get that selector? Alright, this one worked fine. This is easy, because I know the two types. It's either t or bool. So doing the where clause was no problem. Includes were a t comma object, and that worked okay. Maybe t comma object can work here. I just have to cast it. And my cast needs to be what? T comma object. Cannot convert from a enumerable object to a queryable of t. Because this thing still expects to be an iQueryable of t. Can you add a select to an iQueryable and still have it be the same iQueryable, or does it change to a new type? That might be a problem. I might not be able to do it in here. Let's see where this is called. So in base specification, no, that's not going to be where it's at. In Nope, not there. Alright, so in this Ief repository, we'd say apply this It expects back an iQueryable of t. How would I get that to return an arbitrary query with that's not t? That's a new select. I'd almost have to pass that in to the repository, wouldn't I? I'd like it to be on the specification, but then my return type can't be a list of t. Neoashi, is this implementation doing paging on the server side, and does it generate the correct SQL to select only that page's data? Yes, it'll do all that. You can see it in action on the eShop on Web sample. So while I ponder how to do what I'm trying to do, you can go take a look at the code here. eShop on Web is a Microsoft reference app that I support, maintain. In here you'll see there are specifications that look an awful lot like the one in my Nuget package. And there's a paginated one here. This is what's done on the home page. Make it big. And this apply paging is all it takes for this to work. So you tell it however many to skip and however many to take when you create the specification. And that's just a easy matter of page size times current page. So if it's 0 based. So if you're on page 1, then the index is 0, you'll skip a 0 and you'll take whatever the page size is, like 10. And then if you're on page 2, you'll take 1 times 10 and you'll skip that many, and then you'll take 10, etc. So that's how that works. Alright. So my problem is that this repository expects to return back a t. All of its methods return some type that depends on t, except for count, and update, I suppose, and delete. But how do I get it to return whatever the selected thing is? That's almost its own different t for the query, for the selection, right? And if I don't do that, everything this returns, right, this list, returns me back a list in memory, which means that the selection, if I do it after I make this call, the selection will happen in memory and not on the database as I want. Alright, well let's start a little bit easier. Alright, let's start with just doing a DB context. So I've already got a DB context somewhere up here, right there. Okay, so I could say, give me DB context dot blogs dot select, and then I could pass in here new blog name specification dot selector, right? So equal TBD Gamer, welcome. Okay, so if I do that, can I get that to work? And that should give me a list of names. And if I go with that and say dot first or default, it should give me the first blog. Let's see if that runs. I'm not sure I can run this without hitting that run all tests thing. No, I'm sure I can't run it without building it. Alright, we'll just make that a get set for now. And it's a func of t comma object. And then our blog specification here. Let's make that object. And then let's make selector equal b dot name. Alright, that should work, I think. Okay. Let's build. Level learn your fellow dev name is level 2. About to start releasing my game and trying to figure out what forum and website hosting I should go with. Any ideas? Well, an easy thing to use as a forum would be Discord or Slack. And there's lots of cheap web hosting solutions. You could use GitHub and then use GitHub Pages for a free option. So use GitHub Pages, Gitter.im for chat if you want. A lot of folks use. Or, like I said, Discord or Slack would work. Alright, we're not doing that yet. Still figuring out how that works. Okay, so we built. Let's see if my test can run. Database tests, right here with the DB context, run the test. It's going to blow up because I can't find the database. Boom, can't find the database. Alright, that's what I thought. So, let me just run this again. And this will rebuild the tests and the system under test and spin up a SQL database in a container, which I described earlier, and then run all my tests. And then we'll see if it works. I expect it will. I can also configure this thing so it will run against a SQL instance, but then I have to modify it on every machine that I run it on. And this doesn't take too long. Alright, so that finished. And 11 tests were successful out of 11, so that worked. Okay. So let's get rid of this. And the next step is, how do I do this through my Ief repository? Right? And I almost feel like I need a new list method that returns not a T, but an object, or an enumerable of object. Or an enumerable of T query. Trying to think what that would look like, right? So this thing doesn't even implement an interface at the moment. That's good. So if I just said I wanted to have a list async like this, and instead of returning an IRead-only list of T, it would return an IRead-only list of object. And maybe I apply the specification, and then I do a dot select spec.selector. Does that all work? List async projection. List with projection async. I'll lose the async apparently. Alright, well, I guess we'll just try the toList. No, it's not going to like this. I wonder why I can't do a toList async after a select. others have wondered the same thing. And they said, split it into 2 statements. But the problem is, then this won't do the query on the database. This will do the select on in memory. And that's what this guy says. You will need to await the query before calling select. No. You need to import system data entity rather than system link. Okay. Let's see what that does for me. That's not even a thing. What the heck is that? Alright. I've already got Microsoft Entity Framework, so I don't think so. Run async. These are so old. This one right here was exactly what I wanted, but their answer doesn't work. Alright, that's annoying. So I'd like for this to run async, but I'd also like for it to just work. So I guess we do the toList, and that should work. Oh, it looks like it builds. Right? Async method lacks an await. Alright, that's true. Task.from result. Give me all that. Requires one type argument. Yeah, it's whatever type this is. List of object. Jeez. Task.run return. That seems to let this go through. I'll clean it up to make that work better later. Alright, so list with projection async might do what I want. So let's try and get back to that test. Alright, so that test worked. Get log, select the only return string name using db context. That's not really testing any of my code per se, but it does at least run that specification. Let's do the same thing using Ief repository. Okay, so now the result is, let's get a specification, var spec equal new log name spec. And then we're going to say result is list with projection spec Okay, so what does this return then? An iRead-only list of object, which is awaitable. So I guess we await on that. And why don't you get me a first or default? Because read-only list doesn't have that. Why would read-only list not have first or default? Really? So I already awaited on it. Getting that. There we go. Okay. So now it would have been a task. Now it's the actual thing. First default. That looks good. So I now have 12 tests, which I want to run here. And let's see if they work. Now it might make sense to allow any specification to have an optional projection set, either as a property or through the constructor, and then pass that through. Nope. 11 tests passed, 1 test failed. Alright. Well, that's too bad. I was really hoping it would just work. It's not easy to tell which test failed in its output, unfortunately. So I think I'm going to have to ignore all the other tests. Next unit doesn't have an ignore. That's the easiest way to do this. Skip. There we go. Or I can add a Nuget package skippable effect. So we'll try that. Alright, so let's get rid of all the other ones. I'm sure there's a more efficient way to do this. There aren't that many of them. Keep the one we want. And try it again. Now the failing test should be the only test that runs. total test 12. No, okay, here we go. Total test 1. Perfect. And I've got results file here I can open up, so maybe I'll look at that too if looking at the output log here doesn't help me. Alright, so here's the issue. Value cannot be null. Link select, selector, Ief repository line 40. Something is null. Okay, so Ief repository line 40 right here. Apply the specification. Spec.selector. Hey Dev Invisible. Thanks for joining today. Yeah, my .NET Conf talk where I did everything in like 18 minutes. It was pretty quick. Glad you saw that. Sorry. Yeah, I know. I was trying to keep the conference on track though, because they were falling further and further behind, and there were a ton of people complaining that the people who were going before I went weren't done yet, and I didn't want every single presenter to have that happen to them. So I kind of took one for the team there. Yeah, and I mean, if you have any questions about anything, feel free to ask. We're actually working on something that's related to clean architecture and eShop on web stuff. We're just trying to extend the specification so it supports selection queries, which I haven't done before, so I'm stumbling through it. It should be possible. I'm just trying to figure out the best way to do it. So anyway, like I said, feel free to ask questions. Here, the issue that we're getting is we're getting a null reference exception on line 40. Pretty sure I passed in the spec. I could verify that, but I know I passed in that. So if this thing returns null, and then I try and do a .select on the null, that would cause the issue. The hardest thing in .NET is figuring out what's null when something is null. Parameter name selector. So is the issue that this right here is null? That's got to be what it is. So spec.selector somehow was null in my test. And spec.selector, we're looking at this. This is the blog name specification. Let's go definition. There's the selector. There's where I set it to something. In fact, I could even say that's a default value, so it always has a value. Okay, so look, it's never null. I mean, we'll leave it public, I guess. Blog names. There's that. I can't debug into this. At least not the way I have the test set up to run currently. So my best thing I can do is some kind of logging. Alright, so Ief repository, we could break this up into different pieces. So I could have an iQueryable. Let's try this. Var subresult equal apply spec there, and then I can say return subresult dot select spec dot selector, like that, and then I need this cast there. Right, and I can say here if spec is null. Not sure I've got that. Throw new argument null exception. Spec is required. So that'll tell me if that's. Yeah. Comment this out. Thank you for following Schleuder using system, and then we'll do another one of these checks here. if spec.selector is null, throw new exception, specification must have a selector. There. Okay, so I should get, at the very least, a better exception message now when I run this. Dev Invisible, yeah, you're welcome to shoot me an email. I mean, I do consulting on this kind of thing for a living, but I'm happy to answer a quick question. You can also open issues on my Clean Architecture repository on GitHub. I'm not sure if I have a bot that responds to that. Looks like no. So I'll give you the URL here. Here we go. Yeah, I'll have to add a bot for Clean Architecture. I don't remember which bot I have going. Is it Stream Labs or Stream Elements? It's got to be Stream Elements, which is not the one I have here. So, all right, we'll get that later. Okay, look, our test ran. Test run was successful. What? This one failed. Yeah, no problem. You're welcome. All right. Specification must have selector defined. Interesting. All right. What am I missing up here? So this is the only fact that matters. Create a new blog name specification. It should just set it, but let's set it here just for good measure. Set it again. Pass that specification instance into this method, which we know is being called. Run it. Alright. Now we got specification must have a selector defined. Why? This is where I would like to be able to debug. Because there's my specification. Let's go here. If the specification selector is null, throw this exception. So unless this somehow sets it to null, which wouldn't make any sense, it does that. This doesn't know anything about the selector. I only specified it there, and I commented that out. Is this hiding the other one? Dang it. I hate it when it happens. Alright, that's what it is. Alright, so my selector property here is hiding the one I want. Alright, let's take this. Let's go find the base one. There's that one. That looks right. That's implementing the interface. Alright, so that's a dumb mistake on my part, sorry. So if we get rid of this, and we oh shoot, you know what, I don't need this to be here at all. That's the thing. I need to just specify it here. There we go. Then that goes away. So when it's using the type off the interface, it's going to use this one now. Let's see if that works. The weird thing is that the selector, no, that makes sense. Never mind. Okay, so we get a new error. That's progress. Unable to cast object of select enumerable iterator, blah 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 blah, to read-only list of object. At line 45 of Ief repository. Okay, so that's here. So when I try and cast this to my read-only list, it doesn't like that. And the actual thing I've got to work with is an enumerable iterator with two generic properties of type blog and object. Select enumerable iterator. Right. So I need to cast my thing to an enumerable and then let it do a toList. Okay. Maybe. Select enumerable iterator. Thanks for the follow, Nesby. Okay. Shouldn't I have some helper methods here, like toList or toAsync enumerable? That would work. How about that? So then I could say await on that. iAsync enumerable does not contain getAwaiter. If you're an async enumerable, oh, that's that new thing they've added. Alright. That's not what I want. You'll let me just do a toList though, right? In two different ways. So let's just toList you. See what that does. This seems too easy, it's probably not going to work. Wait for it. Unable to locate directory. Alright, it's a new error. I don't know why the output this time was different. I don't think I can get to this results file because I'm not spitting it out anywhere, am I? Do I have a test results? I do. There we go. Alright. Tools. Windows. Test result window. Where's that? Good coverage? No. How do I open up that test coverage file? Let's go here. Test results, most recent. Gimme. Alright, so here's what we ran. It says this one passed. Alright, cool. Well, and if that's what happened, then I'm fine with that. My output didn't say that very clearly, though, did it? Alright, so theoretically, I can delete that. I can get rid of all those. So I don't need that. Go to my tests. I need to refactor these tests. But let's do Control H on that and replace it with just a fact. Do it. Okay. Good, good, good. Let's run all the tests and see what we get. I don't remember how many blogs I added to my sample. Was that in the top of the test that I did that? Sure, so it's the migrations I'm using. Where's my DB context? Here. DB context gives me an author, gives me a test blog, gives me a bunch of posts. So do I want to have another blog, or do I want to grab a bunch of posts with names? Let's try something more interesting from a data shaping standpoint. Make sure it all works. This is not good. Why is it doing this all of a sudden? I need to locate repository with working directory that contains that. Okay. Well, that's annoying, but these all work, so that's good. Blog name specification is fine, but what if I want to get the blog posts, post names? Try blog post titles, and this would be includes b.post. What's my syntax for with posts? Add include. There we go. So add include posts. Selectors b such that b dot posts dot name. How do I do that? Do I need select many support? Maybe. Single item, let's get multiple items from it. Yeah, I think I want to do a select many on posts, and then select. I don't have support for select many currently. Man, that's annoying. How do I support select many without having to add yet another thing? I don't want to have a select many or. There's no way to just select in one lambda. Let's say like the blog ID and then each blog title, each blog post title. I guess that won't work. That's annoying. Alright, I'm going to not do that right now. And we're going to at least do a commit and get this initial bit working. Alright, so let's do a base specification of blog. This EF repository can be of anything, so let's make sure that we can do it with a post as well. So blog name specification, let's do something with a post. Post select specification, base specification of post. Okay, do that with that, and selector equals this. Like that. Okay. And in my test, I can make a post repository, which I don't have yet. Oh, I do. It's right there. Okay. So, blog select name, get posts, select name and URL, only returns expected results using EF repository. Alright, so this will be the post select specification, and it will take in select name and content. Thank you for helping. Why do you insist on putting a semicolon out there? What am I doing wrong here? That works fine. B such that B dot name. P such that anonymous object needs a new. There we go. Bam. Alright, got it. That shouldn't be required. Blog repository needs to be a post repository. List with projections, blah blah blah. Result should be result should be not null, yeah. So I'm only getting first or default. As far as an object, make it a dynamic. Result dot title dot should be whatever. Result dot content dot should be whatever. Let's see what that should be. Sample DB context is where I set it up. Each post has a title. First post is the first one with lorem ipsum. So that should be the first thing I get. Now, let's see how close we get to this one working. And then we'll do a commit. Thanks, ConLab. Just saw your suggestion of new, which I think I got to. Alright, so if this works, we will have, I think, 13 passing tests. And it failed. I gotta get rid of these warnings. Enable sensitive data logging to see key values. Yeah, that needs to go away. Error message. Anonymous type string does not contain definition of should. Okay, shouldly. Dynamic result. Well, this shouldn't be here. That might be a problem. That should work, right? Line 118. That's this one. So it doesn't like that. Insert dot not null. Result. Fine, we'll do that. Better. Let's see if it's happy with that now. I should probably put whatever test I'm working on at the end. The only reason I didn't is because I had a starting test that I liked the look of that I copied. And it was easier to copy it in place. So I really just need to refactor these tests out. Because the selection test could be their own test file. Failed. String does not contain a definition for should. Hey Crows 4K, how's it going? Alright, so my should methods are just not working now for some reason. The should methods just don't like to work on dynamics apparently. Expected. Alright, Visual Studio is being weird. Like, why is it adding tab stops into my comment there? That's just strange. It just did that. I don't know why. I also don't know why should doesn't work with dynamic string types. Alright, let's try it one more time. And this time, because I'm smart, I'm going to move this thing to the bottom. In fact, I'm going to move both these select ones, all these select ones. These are my select tests, these three. Go into the bottom, we'll put them in another file in a minute. Now let's run our tests one more time. Database is up, or at least coming up. Unit tests are done. Integration tests are running. What was my result? 13 of 13, everything's happy. Sweet. Ship it. Alright, database communication tests. That's like the worst possible name for a test. And also, all these things happen here. I kind of want to have this be a base test. So if I make a public class selector tests, which is a horrible name for a test suite, but we'll go with it. Database communication. No. DCT. There we go. That. We take our last three tests that were selectors, pull them out of here, and throw them in there. And then move that to its own file. No, don't do that. I just want you to move to a file. Thank you. These are all public, so it should still be able to get to them. And then these can go away. Alright. Let's run the test and let's make a pull request. And then we'll see if we have time to look at the guard clauses. Alright, so here's this, here's that. It should still pass, because all I did is move things around. That one works. Those ones also work. Now I have 23 tests. I just doubled my tests. Not sure what happened there. Really not sure what happened there, but it's fine. Let's see, what does my test explorer say here? It knows I don't have 23 tests. No, it says 23 tests. Seriously, what are you doing? Testing group 23. There's 3 tests there. Oh shoot, I know what it is. It runs all these tests when it runs the other one because I inherited from this whole thing. I didn't make a base. Alright, so let's pull this into a base type. Public class database communication test base. That's why all this stuff comes out of there and goes into here. And then this thing inherits from database test base, like that. You should pick that up. Count string, yeah, it should work. Inaccessible due to its protection level. Fine. Now you're happy? Now you're happy. Alright, this goes here. And this goes there. It's like, I know I don't have 23 tests. Niashi, I have a project using Mediator. Can I use Ardalis specification Nuget in query handlers? Ardalis, yeah, sure, totally. All specification is a value object. It's really, it's pretty easy. Alright, so that should all be good now. Let's run the test one more time. Let's look at our test explorer. It still thinks we have 23 tests. I do not have 23 tests. Shoot, I know what I forgot. The other one has to go to the base too. You go there. Now I don't have 23 tests. Now I have 13 tests, like I should. Alright. Okay. Yeah, kill it. Run it. Yeah, there's no reason why Mediator query handlers wouldn't work with specifications. That should work fine. And specifications don't have to work with a database or with Ief. You can actually use this pattern for a lot of different things. You can use it for querying against a collection of objects in memory. You can use it for validation. You can have a selector or a specification basically that defined whether or not something was valid, and then just apply the specification as part of a validation strategy. What do I think about Azure functions and how they play along with the REST API? Azure functions are getting better. Both them and Amazon Lambda used to have problems with cold starts and being either taking a long time or taking a highly variable amount of time to start up, which could be an issue. They've gotten better and they offer more options now to keep them warmed up essentially, so you don't have that issue. They aren't themselves REST endpoints, but you could certainly integrate REST calls with them. My usual use for that type of tech today, serverless, is to have them respond to some kind of an Azure event. So you might have an Azure event that occurs when you add something to blob storage, or in response to a queue on a message queue, an item being placed on a message queue, or service bus. So Azure Service Bus or various queues, other Azure things can all be used to trigger Azure functions, and then some type of work takes place. And that's the more typical route. So if I had a REST endpoint, I would have the REST endpoint write to a queue, write to a service bus or whatever, and then have an Azure function fire off in response to that. Is my typical approach. That said, we're getting close to the point where you'll be able to use Azure functions behind like an API gateway as your actual endpoint. I just don't think we're quite there yet, but I'm sure that somebody's got a demo of it at this point already. Alright, git status, all the things, git add dot, git commit. Add a basic selector, support tests. Git push, Niyoshi plans for using Mediator and eShop solution. Yes, it's on the list. In fact, I think it's there. I haven't updated the ebook to write about it yet, but I think we just added it like in the last week and a half. My buddy Eric Fleming, I think, did a pull request, which I may not have accepted yet, but there should be a PR with it, even if I haven't pulled it in yet. Let's look at that in just a second. So speaking of PRs, let's go over to here. And this is number 2. And I'm going to create a new pull request for that. I'll say it fixes number 2. Create. We'll wait for that build to run. Let's go look at eShop real quick, since you're asking about that. eShop on web. Let's see, what do we got for pull requests? There's 3 of them. Mediator example, there we go. So, Niyoshi, right here, 325 pull request. It's coming. It'll be in the sample here soon. I just haven't had a chance to look at this. Eric does good work, so probably it works fine. Now it's not using Mediator everywhere. It's just using Mediator to demonstrate how to use Mediator in the context of a MVC app. So it's meant to give a side-by-side comparison of what does it look like with or without using Mediator as your approach. So over here on the left, this is what it looked like before, where I've got an order controller and it would take a repository and it would list the orders or order details or whatever. And on the right, you can see what it looks like with Mediator. So now it's like the only dependency I have is Mediator, and my actions are tiny, right? It's just boom, mediator.send, go get the orders. And then over here, mediator.send, go get the order details, where this is the command essentially that's being sent. Now we're going to have new handlers for those, right? So here's a handler called getMyOrders. Actually, that's the request. Here's the getMyOrders handler. I request handler getMyOrders, returning back a list of order view models. And then this is where the order repository moved to. And then that work that used to happen inside the controller now happens just inside this handler. So it's better for a single responsibility principle, because this little getMyOrders handler literally just does one thing. Then getOrderDetails has a message and a corresponding handler as well, and it does its work here. And so when you're done, the controller is much, much smaller, is the idea. Let's see, order item view model, not much change there. Since we're looking at this, we may as well just finish up our review, right? So order view model, defaults to pending. That looks all good. Status defaults to default. Alright. Mediator got added. And we wrote some tests. Let's write some more tests. I think that looks good. Let's just approve this. And we'll merge it. Boom. There we go. Delete the branch. Where are link URLs getting added to the view model? It's good enough. Niyoshi, I'm not sure what you're talking about. So let me know if I can answer that question better, because I'm not seeing what you're asking. DBD Gamer, Mediator is a neat library. I only found out about it this year. I'd written my own without knowing the pattern was a thing. Yeah, that's funny how that works. I think we've all done that. Like, you're like, oh, I figured out this great way to do this. And you realize, oh yeah, people figured that out a long time ago. It's called the such and such pattern. But when you don't know about a pattern, you don't even know that it exists, you don't know its name, there's no way to search for it, right? It's like, I need to search for this thing that does this thing I'm trying to do. Like, that's the power of patterns, is once you know the name of it, suddenly you can actually talk about it and search for it and, use that name in your design and communicate with your team. That's the thing you're trying to do with that particular class or set of classes. They're very powerful just from a language perspective in that way. Alright, so let's go look at GuardClauses, because I got some things people are asking me for here. Specifically, we have this question about XML comments. I don't know if I'm doing anything with this. Not contained documentation file. Hello. Okay, yeah, so if someone wants to PR that, that'd be great. That was back in October. Anybody say anything? Let's update the branch. Right, I'm not sure what that did. And then there's this other one. A few small issues. I don't know how this is different from the other one. This is for sending XML comments. And this is for sending XML doc file. Alright, so those are two different things. My build is running. Where are the link URLs getting added to the view model? Hypermedia links to the view model response. But there's no hypermedia links in the eShop on web. Alright, so this is merged in now. Jumping back to the Mediator question. So when I want to get a list of my orders here, I'm going to get back this view model. It's going to be whatever the get my orders handler sends me back. So somewhere in here are my handlers for this. And I think they actually, where did we put them? I'm not sure where they ended up. Feature my orders, there we go. Get my orders handler, bingo. Yeah, so your question is where the links come from for this, and there's a picture URL that's about the closest thing to a link that we have, and it just grabs that off as a property off the thing that was ordered. So there's no hypermedia, there's no API here, right? This is just building a view. So this thing returns that view model that goes to the view that then gets used. So that's this view order my orders. Sorry, down here, view orders my orders gets displayed in here. Display. Yeah, I don't see where the image is, but somewhere in here there's the image. I don't know. Hopefully that answers your question. These things are still building. So let's look at my most recent pull request. This one I know somebody just asked, I was going to say a few days ago, but 22 days ago. And they want to make sure that we get these arguments in the correct range. Now the problem with this is this going to cause any breaking change? Let's look at what he changed. Argument out of range, exception. Who did this? I didn't do this. I feel like running git Blaine. Yeah, this should totally be parameter name first. Now all this is going to affect is the output. So the worst thing that will happen is this will break someone's test that was expecting the wrong thing. So this looks fine. View it, review it, approve it, submit it, squash and merge it. Sure. Alright, so then I just have to do another release to get that thing out into production. I can never remember how I do releases on this. I think I have to do a tagged build. Is that it? Publication checklist. I used to do this all by hand on local using this. But now I think I just need to create the tag of v whatever whatever. So let's see, nuget.org. What version am I on? 129. So I think if I create a new 1.2.10, that should be good. Or do we say that this is a 1.3.0? Maybe it's a 1.3.0. Alright, so releases, draft a new release. This could be a 1.3.0, I think. Hey Flem, how's it going? I can't decide whether it gets a V in front of it or not. I've done both. I guess we'll just do it with no V. So because it changes the behavior, we'll tick it up a minor version. Release title 1.3.0. Describe this release. Well, it's kind of small and so many bytes, and it looks like mostly ones and zeros if you look at it under a microscope. Let's see, this is a minor release that fixes a few bugs, including an argument out of range exception having the wrong message. How about that? Publish. Okay, now the question is, will that trigger my build to do the right thing? I think it's supposed to. I think I have that all set up. I do this like once every 4 months, so we'll see. So if we go to my Azure pipeline, these things are still building. Those things succeeded, that's good. And this release here, there should be a 1.3.0 release, maybe? Like these should fail because they're going to have the same release number. This one though should work right here. So we'll see. Alright, anybody have any questions while we wait? Dev Invisible, you still there? You were wanting to have some questions about clean architecture, and that'd be a good time. Cosmos DB, what should I learn next? You should learn Cosmos DB next. My main question. What does Cosmos DB have to be with your question? Do you mean literally what should you learn next about Cosmos DB, or do you mean more generally? I think it depends what you want to do, right? Cosmos is a nice database because it's very flexible. What should I learn next in general? Alright. Well, I don't know what you already know. So, do you know all the design patterns? Those are always good. Do you know a particular cloud tech, whether it's Azure or AWS? Do you know how to build stuff in the cloud? I think that would be good. Learn to turn off Cosmos or else it will empty your wallet. That's good advice. TBD Gamer, thank you. So I think that worked. It's still chugging through other ones though. Okay. Learn more about Mediator. That's good. Yeah. Learn how to get really good at testing. That'll always be good. Architecture is good. If you know basic object design patterns, do you know cloud design patterns? There's a whole host of those. I'm doing a talk on that at CodeMash in Sandusky, Ohio in January. So check out cloud design patterns. Microsoft has a whole book on them that's useful. So you can check that out. What's the Mediator pattern framework thing? I don't know what you mean. Mediator is a pattern, and Mediator that Jimmy Bogard supports implements that pattern. And the idea is that you can have two things communicate with each other without them having to know about each other, right? So like I can have a controller that can launch a command and get a response from a handler, but the handler doesn't have any dependency on the controller. In fact, the handler could be in a whole other package. I could ship my MVC project separate from all my handlers, and they wouldn't have to know about each other. So that's what the Mediator pattern allows you to do, and that's what the Mediator assembly or Nuget package does for you. Alright, so that passed. Where's my release? Is my release going to do its thing? It's trying. Ah, is that the one I wanted to work? That's my 1.3.0. Why do you fail? package with 129 already exists. Did I have to change that? I think I had to change that. I always screw this part up because I don't do this often enough. So let's go back to GuardClauses. Go here. Go here. The thing I never changed that I need to change is this CS_proj file needs to update to 130. So we're going to just hack it. And I do this like every time. 130. And then there's release notes. Package release notes. Fixed order of out of range exception. There. Commit directly to master. Boom. Okay, so theoretically that's going to come back into my build pipeline here. And then it should make this release pass. That should be green, like this one, which I last did in July. So about every 4 months. Ruh-roh. Alright, let's see if we can get this thing to done and then get out of here. What other questions people have? Crow's 4K, was that helpful? Did we give you some things to think about? I would say testing, design patterns, cloud. Those would be high on my list. I'd also add Docker on there. If you don't know anything about Docker, at least install and run something in Docker just so you know how it works. And Surly Dev, did we answer your question? A cool thing you can do, ConLab asking about Mediator, is you can, let me show you back here. You show up on web, source, web, controllers, order controller. Alright, notice that here we have to inject this mediator. The thing about this is that we could have a base controller here that we used, and then this could be a property on that base controller. And then we wouldn't even have to inject this into any of our controllers. And so essentially you would just have controllers that were literally just endpoints, and each endpoint was like 1 or 2 lines of code. And things like this, where you're taking in a parameter through model binding, in this case the order ID, you could, if you wanted to, you could take this piece right here and get it through model binding, right? In this case it might be a little tricky because it's asking for user identity name, but I'll bet I could pull that in through the model binder as well. And in this case you would just say that the type that you're getting into detail would be a get order details type. And so instead of you having to Annuit up yourself, the model binding would take care of giving you one of those. It would assign order ID to the property of get order details that matches that. And then you would just have one line here that says viewModel equals mediator.send this command that you model bound, and then get back your result. This bit here you could also pull out with some kind of a filter, right? So if you wanted to, you could have this return a view with a viewModel, and then you could have a filter, probably a post action filter that would check if it was null and do the bad request, right? So it didn't actually hit the view. I think you could do that. Might be other ways to do that as well. But see, like things like this you're going to have frequently. You're going to have these in a lot of different places in your controllers. So it would make sense to find a way to pull those out into filters so that they're not there again and again and again. You want to get rid of that repetition. You want to be able to make this a policy that you apply to your entire web app. And so end users expect that whenever a certain scenario happens, like, the thing they're looking for was null or didn't exist, that they're going to get a consistent result, right? In this case, it's a bad request. Maybe if we know that it's no such order, maybe this should be a not found, but whatever, it should be consistent for that application. All right, that passed, and this is working on it. Maybe. Not yet started. Okay, do it. Come on. Alright, if this works, we should see here, we should see 1.3.0. And then you guys can all rush out and download the latest version. There. So I'll be able to see it before you do if it happens. And I'm going to be done in a few minutes. Let's see if we can raid somebody. Twitch, live coders, who's online? Quiet. Sorry. Let's see. Clarkia is usually a good one. He's got a ton of people. Leno Lux. I don't know who RhymeU is. Doing some kind of game coding, it looks like. That might be a good one. I don't know. Maybe we'll raid RhymeU 8354. Because why not? Alright, come on. I just want this thing to deploy. Why are you being so slow, Azure? Is this gonna work, actually? Because this one's not running off the tag. I want to redo this one is what I want to do. Because this one's trying to do master. Can I start my own release? How do I tell it to do a release of 1.3.0 again? Like, hey, try this again. Edit. Like, do I have to bump it to 1.3.1 to make this thing work? That would be annoying. How do I retry a release? Rerun failed thing. Everybody else wants this. Everybody wants this. Allow redeploy of a failed release. Yeah, that'll be good. We support and restarting a release pipeline. See this. We can take the existing release and retry. Okay. Good. And of course it doesn't work. Thanks for nothing. Nuashi, you're welcome. Question about APIs. When you call an API and the API doesn't have the record you're looking for, would you expect it to return a 404 or 200 OK and something that says not found? I would always, always, always return a 404 if you're hitting an API and it can't find the record corresponding to the thing you asked it for, because that's what 404 means. Alright, this is annoying. Apparently there's no easy way to retry this one, which is what I need to do. Right? I don't want to view it per se, I want to retry it. That artifact triggered that release, that thing failed. Run again. Try again. Automatic trigger, associated changes. Okay. Nuget push failed. I get that. Retry. I think I need a new release. So, this is dumb, but I'm going to come in here. I'm going to make it 1.3.1. I'm going to tag it 1.3.1. Release notes. Incrementing to get build to work, which I think I've done before. I could make a new branch, but no. Commit there. Okay, 131, done. Come back here. Releases. Draft. 1.3.1. 1.3.1. Looks suspiciously like 1.3.0, but needed to rev it to get release pipeline to work. Publish. But now you're going to work? Because you're going to see it. You're going to see 131 through there. So, alright, I'm not going to keep you anymore. If you're on the edge of your seat about whether or not this works, keep an eye on Ardalis.GuardClauses, which I'll post a link to right here. In my mind, a 404 means you got the address to the API wrong. No. I mean, you might also get a 404 for that, but I think a 404 is well established as a valid API result, meaning that you didn't find the record you were looking for. The whole thing with REST is that you're using HTTP verbs and status codes to represent things in your API. Things like a client-side error, like a bad request, a server-side error, like 500 server error, and also, yes, things like 200 OK and 404 not found. Those are all very common things you expect to find in an API, and HTTP supports them already, so use those. Just like it's expected that you'll use get for reads, and post for creates, and puts for updates, and delete for deletes. You could just use gets for everything, or posts for everything, but you shouldn't, because REST is all about using the HTTP things as they were intended to perform those operations. So that's where I stand on it, and that's what I recommend. I've got a talk on Web API best practices, and that's one of the things we talk about, is what are the standard responses and what are the standard verbs that you should use. And you might vary them a little bit, right? If as long as you're consistent. The most important thing is that your API is consistent everywhere as far as how it works, and you document that, and the folks that have to use it understand it. Beyond that, it'd be nice if you followed kind of the industry de facto standards, but virtually nobody implements the entire REST spec, so that's not necessarily something you need to go for. Get shouldn't do updates. Yeah, I agree. And you should always get the same result back if you call the same endpoint, right? Not necessarily. How would you use fluent validation with GuardClauses? You could certainly use fluent validation with GuardClauses, although GuardClauses generally raise exceptions, whereas fluent validation just says something's valid or not. So they're similar, but not exactly the same. Always get the same result back if you call the same endpoint. What if I post something to create a record, and the thing I get back has that newly created record with its ID? If I call that several times, I'm not going to get the same result back, right? So It's not true that everything always gives you the same result. Now, most gets should give you the same result. They should be what's called idempotent, right? So they should give you back the same thing when you call them. And updates should too, right? If I say update record 123, set the name to Steve, I should be able to call that 1 time or 10 times. It should give me the same result every time. And the result should be that the record is there, and you know, if it's returning the record, it should give me that record with the name updated to Steve. But other things won't be idempotent. They won't be the same. Yeah, so we could talk about API design sometime on stream if you like. That would be interesting. I've got some slides and stuff I could share, and some GitHub samples. Look at that. We're almost there. If I talk for a few more minutes, we'll see this thing go. Do it, do it, do it. It's got an actual agent queued this time. Alright, questions? I want this to go. It'd be nice to build a small API test project if we could. Sure, that would be fine. There's one you can check out that I actually use with filters. What's it called? GitHub.com or Ardalis. If you do a search for filters in my repositories, I only have a couple repositories, so it's easy to find. Filter, here, getting started with filters. Look at this one, and you'll see it has this authors controller, and it does a bunch of CRUD operations using REST, right? So it says, give me a list of authors, get me one author, post, create one, put, update one, delete one. Okay, and then I go in here and I say, you know what, let's use filters for this. And so instead of having to test the validation of the view model, we validate it once. And later on, you can now use the API controller attribute to do a lot of this stuff too. This was written for earlier versions of Core. And then here you can add a filter to say verify it exists, right? And if it doesn't exist, return a 404. So now all these things reduced down to 1 or 2 lines of code, right? Whereas before they were a little bit bigger. And this is now a policy where I can just apply this attribute to apply this policy, or apply this attribute even globally, and I get the same consistent behavior everywhere in my API. So I would check that out. Like I say, it's a little bit older of a sample, but it should help. All right, let's kill that. Let's see. Look at that. It published successfully, and drum roll. There it is. It's still validating. You guys won't see it. But there's a 131 now out there for GuardClauses. And that's that. All right, so I'm going to raid Annuit something 54. There's some way to do that here. Ramu there. Start the raid. Have a good weekend. I'll see you guys next week. Thanks. Boom.